There are pains that are born nameless, silent, piercing the chest like a memory that never happened, yet insists on existing. It is an inexplicable void, an echo that responds within the soul, as if something sacred had been interrupted before becoming visible. It is in this territory of shadow and light that Chico Xavier used to enter with a heart ablaze with compassion, carrying with him the certainty that no life is lost, that no love is forgotten, that nothing born of love truly dies. He said that there are human experiences that cannot be contained in words, but that God understands them in silence. And perhaps that is why, when he spoke of the souls that never came to be born, his voice became almost a prayer. Chico didn't approach the subject with fear or taboo. He saw birth and death as two sides of the same divine breath. For him, existence began long before the first cry and continued long after the last breath. "We are eternal travelers between worlds," he said, and even the being who never got to breathe the air of earth had already lived on another plane before. His words had the power to dissolve the rigidity of suffering, transforming pain into understanding. He believed that, in the universe, nothing is wasted. Not a tear, not a gesture, not a heart that loved a child it never saw. Some try to forget, some prefer not to talk about it, fearing to reopen old wounds. But Chico said that denied pain is imprisoned pain, and that when the heart silences what the spirit needs to say, suffering becomes permanent. That is why he encouraged mothers and fathers who had experienced a pregnancy loss to look at the invisible with courage. "You haven't lost a child," he would say serenely. "You will simply meet him/her again in another time, in another form, on another plane, and it is from this truth that we begin this journey." Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine yourself in a field of soft light, where time stands still and silence seems to breathe. There, according to Chico Xavier, rests the souls who return before they are born. They are not lost, they are not trapped in suffering, they wait. They wait for the reunion, they wait for learning, they wait for the moment when mature love can receive them again. But have you ever wondered why some lives seem to be interrupted before they begin? Why some doors close before we have even crossed the threshold? Chico used to say that there are secrets that only divine love understands, that not everything we call tragedy is truly a loss, that sometimes the soul that departs before birth fulfills a greater silent purpose, incomprehensible to human eyes. It may come only to ignite a spark of compassion, to teach about the fragility of life, to awaken what lay dormant within us. It is a brief passage but full of hidden meaning, and he used to repeat a phrase that summarized all this wisdom. Even the smallest breath of life is an eternal lesson in God's book. Some people told Chico that they would wake up in the middle of the night feeling something gentle, like small invisible hands touching their face. Others spoke of vivid dreams in which a baby smiled before disappearing enveloped in light. Chico listened attentively, his eyes brimming with tears and his expression serene, and responded with the same sweetness of someone who had already understood the invisible. These are signs that love has not been broken. They are permitted visits, messages that the bond still exists. For him, the spiritual world was not a distant abstraction, but a continuous dimension, as real as the ground we walk on. And in this space of vibrations and affection, the unborn souls continue to grow, evolve, and love. What he wanted everyone to understand was that the universe knows no concept of chance. No departure is unfair. No pain is without cause. No love is forgotten by the Creator. When a pregnancy is interrupted, only the physical link is broken. The spiritual bond remains intact, vibrating between dimensions. And this bond is sustained by the purest feeling that exists, the love that could not be expressed, but which continues to live, like a flame that refuses to go out. Chico viewed Earth as a school, where each soul comes to learn specific lessons. Some complete the course, others return before graduation, but all take with them the knowledge gained. Life is a classroom that extends beyond death, he said, and sometimes the spirit only needed a few minutes in the womb to fulfill what it came to do. This vision broke through the despair of those who wondered why. He invited them to see the whole picture, to realize that human existence is only a fragment of a much larger divine project. But there was something that Chico always firmly emphasized: no guilt needs to be eternal. Many mothers came to him with broken hearts, feeling they had failed at the life they had hoped for. And he, in a calm voice, would say, "God sees love, not error. He knows the intention behind every gesture. No heart is condemned when repentance is sincere." This was the keynote of his message. Not punishment, but healing. Not judgment, but understanding. He believed that guilt is merely a mirror that shows how much we still love. There is a silent power in the way Chico spoke of the invisible. He didn't impose belief. He invited feeling. His presence radiated the certainty that life extends beyond appearances and that the bonds of love are older than time. When he looked into the eyes of a grieving mother, he seemed to see through her, as if he also heard the spirit that accompanied her. And then he would say, "He is well, she is well, and they continue to love you." Simple words, but capable of undoing years of contained pain. The great lesson he left us is that life is indestructible, that even when it seems there is an end, there is only a change of plans, that the souls that departed early were not erased. They simply walk a road that the living cannot yet travel. And according to Chico, many of these souls, when they reach a certain level of evolution, return to care for those who remain, like little guardians of light, invisible protectors of the homes that awaited them. Think for a moment, what if the soul you mourn is right beside you now, listening to your thoughts, understanding your love, and whispering, "I'm okay"? What if absence is just a disguise for presence? Chico said that love is the only energy that transcends all planes, because it is made of the very substance of God. Therefore, no longing is useless. Every memory, every prayer, every sincere tear is a form of communication with the unseen. Sometimes what hurts isn't the loss itself, but the uncertainty. Where is that soul now? Does it feel me? Does it forgive me? Does it know how much I loved it? Chico would answer tenderly, "It knows. It feels. And the love you share is the thread that keeps you connected until you meet again." For him, death was just a curve on the road to eternity, and love, the map that guides us back. What if all this pain you feel is actually a call to awaken your consciousness to what is eternal? What if absence is a form of learning? What if longing is the way your soul invites you to look up and remember that life never ends? That's what Chico teaches us, that suffering is the shadow cast by the light of love. Where there is pain, there was a bond. Where there is longing, there is a living connection between two worlds. Therefore, when you feel the weight of emptiness, remember his words. No one is alone in their pain. On the other side, someone feels the same love you feel now. These words are more than just comfort. They are a reminder that the entire universe conspires to reunite what time separates. At this very moment, as you read these lines, there are spirits of light gathering tears, transforming them into seeds of peace. There are invisible hearts beating in unison with yours. And above all, there is the serene presence of Chico Xavier, repeating with the same gleam in his eyes, "Nothing that was lived in love is lost. Everything is transformed. Everything returns. Everything is reunited." And it is from this certainty that no life is insignificant and no love is in vain that we begin to pierce the first veil of this mystery. Because what follows is not merely a spiritual explanation, but a revelation about the very nature of existence. A truth that can forever change how you see life, death, and love. There is a mysterious moment between the first breath of life and the first heartbeat. It is there, in that invisible space between spirit and matter, that Chico Xavier said the miracle begins to happen. For him, the beginning of human existence was not simply the meeting of cells or the formation of the body. It was the point of convergence between two worlds, the visible and the spiritual, where an ancient soul prepared itself for another stage of its eternal journey. Chico used to describe this moment as a luminous dance, a slow and sacred approach in which the spirit adjusts to the vibration of the flesh, gradually clothing itself in earthly density. He said that from conception, something grand moves around the mother. Guardian spirits gather, the subtle fluids of the invisible world begin to condense, and a small universe of love forms in the womb. There is a magnetism that transcends biology. It is the spirit being attracted by the vibration of affection, he explained. Even before the heart begins to beat, the soul already feels the call of life, recognizes the home to which it has been destined, and begins to approach, like someone walking towards the light of a lit window in the middle of the night. But Chico also reminded us that this connection does not happen immediately. It is gradual, delicate, like a golden thread being woven between two planes. And in the first months, the spirit still retains part of its consciousness in the spiritual world. It is as if it had one foot in each dimension, observing the process with tenderness and curiosity. This transition, he explained, is full of meaning. The developing body is like a temple being erected, and the soul that will inhabit it participates in this process consciously. Sometimes it observes the future father and mother, follows their conversations, feels their emotions. Other times it withdraws for moments, as if hesitating, as if testing whether that love is strong enough to sustain it on earth. There are mothers who, during pregnancy, feel an inexplicable love, a profound peace they don't know where it comes from. There are others who dream of children's faces, hear soft laughter, or feel an enveloping presence that makes them cry for no reason. Chico said that these are the signs of the approaching soul, rehearsing the first contact. But like everything in life, this union is also subject to spiritual laws and karmic adjustments. There are cases, he taught, in which the physical body cannot adapt to the energy of the soul. The vibration is too high, the vehicle is too fragile, and the bond breaks before it can solidify. When this happens, there is no suffering as we know it. The soul does not feel the trauma of death because it is not yet fully integrated into the flesh. It simply returns to the spiritual plane, supported by the mentors who awaited it. It's like a child who was about to enter a house but the door closed before they crossed the threshold, Chico would say in a calm voice. They weren't trapped outside, they were guided back home. In many of his conversations, he recounted stories of mothers who had experienced this in an almost physical way. One woman once wrote to him saying that, shortly after losing her baby, she dreamed of an intense light crossing the room. From this light emerged a small figure, with a serene expression, who approached her and touched her face. It said nothing, only smiled and disappeared. Chico responded to the letter saying that this was a real reunion, not an illusion. The spirit had returned to say that it was well, and that even though the human experience had been brief, the love that had blossomed between them would remain eternal. These accounts were repeated in his letters, in mediumistic meetings, and in lectures. There were mothers who reported hearing the sounds of a child inside their home, even after the loss. Others felt a light perfume, unlike any other, and Chico said that none of this was a coincidence. He explained that there are places in the spiritual world destined to welcome these souls. They are regions of serene light, similar to gardens or children's colonies, where loving spirits care for those who return too soon. Nothing is lost, not even an experience that lasted only a few months, he said. Each soul is treated like a rare flower that has not yet bloomed. But there was something that surprised even those who already followed his teachings. Chico affirmed that in many cases these souls already knew, before incarnating, that their time on earth would be brief. He said that they accepted coming out of love, out of a mission, out of evolutionary necessity, that the agreement had been made before birth, in higher planes, when mother and child, spirit and spirit, promised each other to fulfill this brief encounter. No gestation is accidental, he repeated. There is a purpose in every breath that begins and in every breath that ceases. This idea disconcerted many hearts, but it also liberated them, because it showed that there was no injustice, no punishment. There was learning, love, and continuity. He reminded them that spiritual time is different from human time. Sometimes, for a soul, a few days of gestation are equivalent to centuries of progress. There are experiences that don't need to last a lifetime to fulfill their purpose. The soul doesn't measure time in minutes, he said. It measures it in vibrations. Even so, the topic brought anguish. Many women asked, "Why me? Why me?" And Chico, without ever losing his tenderness, would answer, "Because you are stronger than you imagine. Because the love you have is great enough to understand what many still don't understand." He believed that love is the most powerful instrument of healing, and that, even in the midst of pain, it fulfills the function of raising consciousness. Every mother who prays for a child who was never born, he would say, illuminates a part of heaven. There were also cases where the spiritual bond remained so intense that the soul would return to meet again at another time, in another body. Chico recounted stories of mothers who became pregnant again and instinctively felt that it was the same spirit returning. Life is generous, he would say. It offers new chances for reunion. For him, nothing in the universe is lost, and love is the only thread that resists death. Even when everything seems interrupted, There is always an invisible new beginning underway. But what touched those who listened to him most was the simplicity with which Chico spoke of these truths. He didn't use fancy words. He didn't make empty promises. He simply recounted what he saw and felt, with the certainty of someone who witnessed the invisible world with the very eyes of the spirit. In one of his psychographies, a child who had passed away before birth wrote, "Mother, I was like a shooting star. I shone for a short time, but the light remained in you. Don't cry anymore, because longing is the path through which love passes." Chico read those words in silence, and tears streamed down his face. He believed that these revelations were not meant to cause pain, but to free the human heart from the idea of loss. He wanted each person to understand that the bond between mother and child is indestructible. Even when there is no cradle, no photograph, no name, it is a bond made of vibration, not of flesh, and it continues to exist, sustained by memory and prayer. Therefore, he recommended that mothers light a candle, say a prayer, or simply speak in a low voice calling out the name they had chosen. The words of love are not lost in the air, he said. They cross planes. Sometimes in public meetings, he would close his eyes and describe what he saw. He spoke of children enveloped in light, running in gardens, laughing among flowers. He said that many of them looked at the earth, perceiving the suffering of their mothers and sending rays of peace in response. Love is the bridge between dimensions, he explained. Prayer is the step that takes us to the other side. And then, when I opened my eyes again, there was absolute silence in the room, as if each person there had felt for an instant the touch of something that cannot be explained. Chico affirmed that the universe is a work of harmony, that even when chaos seems to exist, there is a divine intelligence guiding everything. He saw in the most painful losses an invitation to awakening. There is no emptiness where God dwells, he said. Even pain is an instrument of celestial wisdom, and thus, he transformed tragedy into understanding, absence into presence, despair into faith. His teachings continue to resonate because they touch a part of the human being that no science can reach. The need to know that life goes on, that there is a meaning behind every tear and a destiny behind every departure. That love, when it is true, does not end in time. It expands until it becomes light. And it is from this certainty that the next revelation is born. Because according to Chico Xavier, understanding why a soul departs early is only the first step. What comes next is discovering the reason why some of them return, and what this return reveals about the very mystery of life and the soul. There are spiritual truths that are revealed only when pain matures within us. Chico Xavier said that suffering is not punishment, it is language, the way the spirit is called to understand the invisible. And perhaps that is why, to understand the destiny of souls that depart before birth, it is first necessary to traverse the mystery of love itself. He believed that every soul that comes to earth brings a silent contract with those who will receive it, a commitment signed in the light. Sometimes this agreement foresees a brief journey, a quick encounter, a touch and nothing more. Even so, this instant fulfills a divine function that transcends human logic. Chico explained that there are different causes for the interruption of a life in gestation. Some are biological, others spiritual, but all are part of a just order. He said that the universe is precise, and that even pain is a mathematical equation of the spirit. Some souls come as messengers, carrying such an intense vibration that the earthly body cannot sustain it. Others return because the lesson was completed earlier than expected, like students excused from a test. And there are also those who leave because they only needed a brief contact with the energy of the family that awaited them. A quick but transformative reunion. Nothing is accidental. Nothing is arbitrary. Nothing is outside divine law. And yet, no matter how many times Chico repeated this, the question always echoed among the mothers who sought him out. Why me? Why did my pregnancy end? Why did this absence choose me? He would answer with tenderness and firmness, because there are pains that only certain souls can bear, and God entrusts some people with the duty of teaching the love that continues even without physical presence. He saw in these experiences a form of spiritual elevation. Every time a soul cries for another that has departed, heaven moves to bring them closer. But what happens to these souls when they depart so early? Where do they go? Chico said that they return to the spiritual colony from which they came, and there they are received by loving spirits who envelop them in vibrations of peace. They are aware of what happened, but they feel no resentment. Death does not shock them, because they were not yet bound to matter. They simply recede, like a wave that kisses the sand and returns to the sea. In these colonies, there are spiritual educators, beings who care for them until they are ready for a new attempt at incarnation. Imagine, for a moment, a soul so small it doesn't yet know the weight of gravity, being carried in arms of light. Chico said that's exactly how it happens. There are mothers in the spiritual world who receive these souls with the same tenderness with which they would cradle a newborn. They nourish them with vibrations of love, explain what happened, and help them understand that there was no mistake, only a change of plane. No one is lost, he affirmed. Love always finds its way back. What if you could see this? If you could, for a moment, see beyond the veil, how much guilt would crumble, how much pain would dissolve before this certainty. Chico said that the greatest pain for those who remain is the ignorance of what happens afterward. It is the emptiness of not knowing. That is why he psychographed messages from these colonies, and in them the little spirits always said the same thing: we are alive, we are loved, and we continue to grow. There are stories he told that seemed impossible, but touched even the most skeptical hearts. In one of his letters, a woman wrote that she dreamed of a child with very light eyes, who always said the same phrase, "I've returned, mother." She didn't understand the meaning until, years later, she became pregnant again. When her daughter was born, she had the same eyes as in the dream, and the woman felt, not thought but felt, that it was the same soul returning now to stay. Chico explained that this was common. The soul doesn't give up on love. It returns when the heart is ready to receive it. But what about when the departure is provoked? When the interruption happens by human decision? When the pain is accompanied by the weight of guilt? In these cases, Chico was even more compassionate. He never judged. He said that the Creator knows the circumstances surrounding each choice, that God sees the despair, the loneliness, the fear. No heart is condemned for acting in suffering, he said. Sincere repentance has the power to mend any broken bond. And he added, the love felt for the one who left is the forgiveness that begins to be born. These words liberated. They liberated mothers who had carried the guilt for decades. They liberated fathers who had never spoken about what happened. Because according to Chico, what imprisons most is not the mistake itself, but the silence surrounding it. Silence is the prison of the soul. When repentance is expressed in prayer, in tears, in words, it transforms into a bridge of healing. And on that side, the departed spirit feels this movement and responds in vibration. Have you ever felt a gentle presence near you without being able to explain it? A shiver, a scent, a light warmth in your chest, as if someone were gently touching you? Chico said that these are the signs of subtle reunions. They are the ones who return to say that love continues. That time does not separate what God has joined together. He believed that longing is a spiritual language, a form of communication between dimensions, and that, when the pain is deep, heaven allows brief visits, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in sensations, sometimes by coincidence. How many times have you thought of someone and then something happened that inexplicably reminded you of that person? A song, a butterfly, a word spoken by a stranger. Chico saw this as the manifestation of the invisible in everyday life. The spiritual mixes with the human all the time, but the heart needs to be awake to perceive it. He said that these synchronicities are not by chance. They are subtle messages from a higher plane, reminders that there is something beyond. Once he was asked if it was possible for a spirit to return to comfort its parents after having departed before birth. Chico smiled and replied, "Not only is it possible, it's common. Often the unborn child becomes the angel who protects the home." He explained that while growing in the spiritual world, the soul develops bonds of gratitude with those who loved it. And when it perceives their suffering, it asks permission to help them. Pain creates a bond of compassion that transforms into a mission, he said. What if that impulse that made you avoid an accident, that sudden intuition that guided you to a better path, was the invisible hand of someone who left before being born? What if the small coincidences that save you every day were proof that the soul you mourn is still with you, just in another form? Chico believed this with conviction. For him, nothing is small in the eyes of love. The most profound revelation he brought, however, was that these souls not only forgive, they understand. On the other side, there is no human judgment. There is total vision. The spirit sees not only the act, but the feeling, the context, the fear, the trauma, and that is why often they are the ones who comfort the parents, sending them peace. Love there is more lucid than love here, he said. It doesn't demand, it understands. Ultimately, everything Chico taught boiled down to a single certainty. Love is the most persistent energy in the universe. It crosses borders, overcomes distances, and is reborn in every form. When a life is interrupted, the love that gave birth to it continues to beat, and that beat is what keeps souls connected. Nothing is lost, he would repeat. There are only new ways to stay together. And so, amidst tears and hope, he rebuilt what seemed irreparable. He showed that grief is not an end but a path, that guilt is only the first step towards understanding, and that, even in the most silent pains, there is a purpose in motion. Because according to him, the universe is woven from threads of love, and what seems like a rupture is, in fact, a disguised new beginning. This is where the story becomes even more profound. Because Chico claimed that these souls not only remain connected to their parents, but also choose them again, returning to the same family when the time is right. And that's where the mystery unfolds in an even more moving way. The reunion is not a distant promise. It has already begun to happen, even if you don't realize it yet. Chico Xavier used to say that there are spiritual bonds that death cannot sever. Love, according to him, is the only energy that remains intact after the body decomposes, and it is also the invisible thread that unites the worlds. When he spoke of the souls that departed before birth, his voice took on a sweetness almost impossible to describe. He affirmed that these spirits do not disappear into the silence of time. They remain close, observing, supporting, vibrating together with those who loved them. The bond is not broken, it only changes form, he would repeat serenely. And this idea, though simple, transformed the lives of thousands of people who found solace in his words. Chico reported that, in many psychographies, he received messages from souls who had left the physical plane before even seeing the light of the world. The letters were full of tenderness, written in a language that seemed to transcend any human limitation. In one of them, a little soul said, "Mom, I wasn't born, but I existed. I hear you when you cry, and each of your tears is a hug that reaches me." Another said, "I was called back, but I haven't forgotten you. The love we feel is my home, and I still live there." For Chico, these communications were proof that love is stronger than time. He explained that the spiritual plane allows these reunions to happen in subtle ways. A dream, a sudden thought, an inexplicable feeling of presence. One story he often told was about a woman who sought him out in despair after losing her baby in the 7th month of pregnancy. She had repeatedly dreamt of a child smiling and running among flowers. In the dream, this child always said the same phrase, "I will return when the garden blooms." Years later, she became pregnant again and had a daughter at the beginning of spring, exactly on the same date that the first baby had passed away. When she showed Chico a photograph of the girl, he closed his eyes for a few seconds and replied with the calm of someone who already knows. Yes, it is the same spirit. He promised, and he fulfilled his promise. Cases like this were more common than one might imagine. Chico stated that many spirits return to the same family after a brief stay, because love creates a powerful magnetic force. He said that the reunion doesn't depend on time, but on harmony. When the mother's heart opens again, the spirit feels the call and returns. Nothing is lost when there is love, he said. Love is the magnet of the universe. There are curious accounts of mothers who recognized gestures, expressions, or even preferences in children born after a pregnancy loss. One mother told Chico that the new baby used to put his hands on his face in a way identical to what she had seen in an ultrasound of her first child, months before losing him. Another reported that her second child, still very young, would say phrases that no one had taught him, such as, "I've been here with you before." For Chico, these signs were proof that the spirit retains its characteristics, its memory, and above all, the emotional bond that connects it to those it loves. But the reunion isn't always immediate. There are cases, Chico explained, where the return needs to wait for the right spiritual time, because both the spirit and the parents need to go through different experiences before they can meet again. He said that life is a great chessboard of learning, and each piece moves at the exact moment. When the moment is right, the reunion happens naturally, as if destiny had only paused. And when this occurs, Something within the human soul recognizes the reunion even without understanding it. It's that feeling of déjà vu, that inexplicable emotion when looking into someone's eyes for the first time and feeling that you've known them forever. Chico also spoke of parents who, after a loss, began to notice subtle phenomena at home. They reported toys moving on their own, soft perfumes appearing out of nowhere, lights flickering during moments of prayer. He listened attentively and said, "These are brief visits, gestures of love permitted by spiritual mentors." He explained that the spirits of these children are very sensitive, and that, upon perceiving the parents' sadness, they seek simple ways to show that they are still nearby. Some mothers reported feeling small, invisible hands touching their hair while they prayed. Others woke up to the sound of children's laughter, even though they knew no one was there. Chico explained that these manifestations should not cause fear, but gratitude. When love is true, it always finds a way to make itself felt. He also stated that when a soul departs before birth, it can remain spiritually connected to siblings who will come after. Many of these children become, on the invisible plane, protectors of their younger siblings. The unborn spirit can become the angel of the family, he would say. There were mothers who wrote to him saying that their children, still young, talked to someone invisible and referred to this being as an imaginary friend. Chico would smile and reply, "It's not always imagination. Sometimes it's love in another form." There is a particularly moving story about a 4-year-old girl who, one night, told her mother, "Mommy, my little brother is coming tomorrow, but he won't stay. He just wants to give you a kiss." The mother, frightened, told Chico about it the next day. Shortly after, she discovered she was pregnant. Unfortunately, the pregnancy ended after a few weeks. When she returned to see him, he simply held her hands and said, "She knew. The love between you two already existed before the body. The kiss happened, even though human eyes didn't see it." These stories weren't told to generate astonishment, but to awaken understanding. Chico said that the spiritual is much closer to everyday life than we imagine. He believed that the invisible mixes with ordinary life, in small coincidences and subtle intuitions. Nothing sacred happens far from the human, he said. Heaven and earth touch in simple things. Therefore, he encouraged people to observe the signs, to pay attention to details, to realize that love continues to operate even amidst pain. A curious fact is that Chico rarely spoke of himself, but on one occasion, he revealed that he too had felt the presence of a soul that had departed before birth. During a meeting, he recounted that, while praying for a woman in distress, he saw a very intense light appear beside her. From this light emanated the vibration of profound love, and he understood that it was the spirit of a child who had passed away early, comforting the mother. At that moment, he said, "I understood that love is a living force independent of the body. It thinks, feels, and acts." These experiences led him to insist on an essential truth. Unborn souls are not trapped in suffering. They continue to evolve and participate in the lives of those who remain, often influencing important decisions, guiding steps, inspiring acts of kindness. Nothing is in vain, he would say. Love does not disperse. It redistributes itself. For Chico, the bond that unites mother and child is a line of energy that never goes out. It only changes frequency, like a song that continues playing in a different key. Some doubt these revelations, and he understood. He said that faith doesn't demand blind acceptance, but openness to feeling. "I don't want to convince anyone," he stated. "I only want to remind people that life doesn't end where the gaze grows weary." He believed that when science and spirituality walk hand in hand, humanity will understand that death is merely a passage of vibration, and that the souls that depart before birth are not absences. They are presences in a subtle state. What was most surprising about Chico's words was the way he transformed despair into concrete hope. He didn't speak of distant theories, but of lived experiences, witnessed, felt. Each account, each letter, each gesture of his seemed to reinforce the same idea. Love is the only language that all dimensions understand, and when a mother prays with a heart full of faith, that prayer crosses universes and reaches the spirit she believes she has lost. That's why Chico said that grief is only the beginning of a new form of communication. The departed soul continues listening, continues loving, continues responding, perhaps not in words, but in signs, in intuitions, in peace. And when this understanding settles in the heart, the pain transforms. It doesn't disappear, but changes its nature. It ceases to be absence and becomes presence in another form. At the end of his conversations on the subject, Chico would always look up and whisper, "No one is alone. Love never says goodbye." And this simple phrase became the summary of everything he taught. Because love, in his view, is the only force capable of overcoming death, retracing paths and reuniting those whom destiny separated for a time. And, as long as there is love, there will be reunion, on earth or beyond. Chico Xavier used to say that some pains don't come to destroy but to awaken. He believed that certain losses are invisible portals, and that suffering, when understood, has the power to transform the human heart into an instrument of light. When speaking about souls that depart before birth, he affirmed that many of them fulfill a brief but profound mission. They come to ignite something within us, he said, and when they leave a spiritual seed that one day blossoms. Sometimes this seed manifests as gifts, intuitions, or a sensitivity that arises without explanation. Other times it transforms into compassion, an almost sacred impulse to comfort those who suffer the same pain. During the years he received thousands of letters from grieving mothers, Chico began to notice a curious pattern. Many of these women, after experiencing loss, developed a kind of heightened perception. Some recounted that suddenly, they began to intensely feel the suffering of others. Others said they had vivid dreams of unknown people asking for prayers. There were those who, without ever having studied anything about spirituality, began to psychograph short messages of consolation. Chico saw in these phenomena a mediumistic awakening provoked by pain. Longing is a channel that connects the worlds, he explained. When the pain is real, it pierces the physical body and opens a passage for the soul. He asserted that pregnancy loss is not merely an end, but the beginning of a process of inner refinement. The grieving mother, he said, is being called to understand love in its purest form. Love that demands nothing, doesn't bind, isn't realized through touch, but through surrender. And this love, when it matures, transforms into strength. There are spirits who came into the world not to be children of only one mother, Chico said, but to make her the mother of many. This was his way of explaining why so many women who lost a baby ended up dedicating their lives to caring for others. In one of his lectures, he told the story of a woman who lost 3 pregnancies in a row and, in despair, believed she would never be a mother. After years of silence, she began visiting a shelter for abandoned children and felt a profound calling there. She cared for the little ones with a love that surprised everyone. Years later, in a psychography, a message arrived. "Mom, we've returned. Each child you embraced was a part of us." Chico said that stories like this proved that love doesn't need blood to fulfill its destiny. The spirit always finds a way to continue loving, and pain transforms into service. But transformation doesn't always happen quickly. Some rebel, some withdraw, some blame themselves. Chico understood. The soul needs time to accept what the heart doesn't understand, he said. He advised that no one should try to stifle grief, because grief is also prayer. Crying is a liquid prayer that rises to heaven. For him, each sincere tear is registered as a vibration of love and reaches the beloved spirit as a gesture of affection. That's how, little by little, guilt gives way to understanding. There was one case that deeply affected him. A man approached him saying that his wife had died as a result of complications following a miscarriage. He blamed himself for not being there at the time. He cried incessantly, saying that he had lost not only his child but also his reason for living. Chico listened to him in silence, prayed, and then told him, "They are together, and she asks you to live. Death has united what fear had separated." The man was in shock. Years later, he sent a letter recounting that one night he dreamed of his wife and child in an illuminated field. They said nothing, only smiled. Since then, he felt peace. "Nothing we love truly goes away," Chico explained. "Love creates bridges where death builds walls." It's curious how pain can awaken dormant gifts. Chico said that many mothers who experienced this loss became intuitive, able to feel the suffering of other women and console them with words that seemed to come from another place. Some started working in hospitals, others in shelters, others simply listening to those who needed to vent. It was as if the love that would have been given to a child began to be spread throughout the world. "The soul that loves always finds a body to serve," he affirmed. "When life prevents the embrace, the spirit creates the gesture. But Chico also warned that spiritual awakening is not a prize, but a responsibility. He said that pain is a demanding school. Those who learn from suffering receive the gift of healing others, but they need to learn to heal themselves every day. He explained that the greater the sensitivity, the greater the need for balance. Therefore, he recommended prayer, silence, and contact with nature. The spiritual world does not seek martyrs, he said. It seeks available hearts. In some of their communications, spirits who had departed before birth recounted that they undertook specific tasks on the invisible plane. They acted as messengers of hope, visiting mothers in despair, inspiring thoughts of faith, calming troubled dreams. They become workers of peace, Chico said. They work to alleviate in others the same pain they knew in their parents. Thus, the cycle closes. The love that generated suffering is transformed into healing energy that returns to earth. Have you ever stopped to think that perhaps the soul that has departed is silently guiding your path now? That the premonition that makes you avoid danger, or that sudden impulse to comfort someone, might come from them? Chico said that spiritual bonds manifest themselves through subtle intuitions. When you feel the urge to help someone for no reason, help them. It could be your child's soul inspiring you. There was a striking story that Chico liked to remember. A young mother, after losing her baby, began to dream of a blue light enveloping her. In the dreams, she heard a voice saying, "Don't cry, teach what you have learned." Without understanding the meaning, she decided to create a support group for women who had gone through the same experience. The group grew and saved lives. Months later, Chico received a message signed by the child's soul. "Mom, thank you for transforming our pain into light." He said that this kind of turnaround was living proof that love is never wasted. But not all stories were serene. In some, the pain became resistance. Chico recounted meeting mothers who, unable to accept the loss, developed illnesses, isolated themselves, and lost their faith. In prayers, he saw these souls surrounded by spirits trying to comfort them, but who couldn't get close because of the density of their suffering. "Deep sadness is a wall of shadow that love must patiently cross," he said. He believed that when the mind refuses to forgive fate, the soul suffers twice, from the absence and from the guilt. And only when a person accepts the mystery does spiritual reunion become possible. As the years passed, Chico became increasingly convinced that these experiences were part of a larger plan. He said that the souls that come and go quickly have a precise task: to accelerate the awakening of human consciousness. They force us to look at the invisible, he explained. They remind us that life is not just flesh, but spirit. This perspective completely transformed the vision of those who listened to him. Suddenly, pain ceased to be a punishment and became a call to evolution. It is at this point that Chico's message becomes even more profound. He believed that the souls who depart early are seeds of faith scattered across the field of the world, and that every mother or father who has learned to love without possessing, without touching, without seeing, carries within themselves a strength capable of changing other lives. The love that is born from loss is the most resilient of all, he said. It crosses the ages and continues creating, teaching, consoling. What once seemed like tragedy then reveals itself as part of a perfect spiritual architecture. And the viewer who follows this story begins to understand that each soul, even the one that only passed through for a few moments, fulfills an indispensable role in the great symphony of life. And according to Chico Xavier, it is precisely this love purified by suffering that prepares us for the reunion, the moment when the invisible and the visible merge again, and everything makes sense. The heart that has understood pain becomes ready to recognize the miracle that is to come. Chico Xavier used to say that love is the only treasure we take from one existence to another, and that everything born of pain can be transformed into light when understood. He believed that life is a continuous learning process, and that no one suffers by chance. Every tear has a purpose. Every loss opens a door that the human eye cannot yet see. And that is why, when speaking about the souls that departed before birth, Chico did not speak of tragedy, but of mission. He said that the true reunion begins when the heart opens to peace. Because love is not interrupted by death, it only changes address. The spirit continues, invisible to the eyes, but alive in feeling, present in the subtleties of daily life, breathing alongside us. There comes a moment in life when Chico's words cease to be mere consolation and become guidance. When he said that no one loses a child, They are only returned to the Creator for a time. He wasn't trying to soften the pain, but to offer a new perspective. He taught that physical absence is not the end, and that the departed soul does not wish to see the suffering of those who remain. It wishes to be remembered with serenity, with love, with the certainty that everything that was lived, even if brief, had a purpose. No love is wasted, he repeated. Every pure feeling is a bridge between dimensions. Chico used to say that the reunion between parents and children separated by death is a divine promise, and that this reunion happens much sooner than we imagine. Sometimes it appears in a dream so real that it seems more like a memory than an illusion. Other times it happens in a moment of silence, when the heart calms down and feels a presence that cannot be explained. He affirmed that the spiritual world moves around the vibrations of love, and that a simple prayer is capable of opening luminous paths between the planes. When we pray with faith, the universe listens, and those we love listen too, he would say with tears in his eyes. The message Chico left wasn't about passively waiting for a reunion, but about living in a way that keeps love alive. He taught that the spirit is not strengthened only by longing, but by action. That the best way to honor a beloved soul is to transform pain into something that helps others, to welcome, to listen, to console, to smile again. He said that suffering only fulfills its purpose when it transforms into movement. Still, pain is a wound, he explained. Pain that serves is healing. Many who heard him followed this advice. People who once wrote desperate letters returned years later, saying they had found a new reason to live. They created support groups, dedicated themselves to volunteering, and became examples of strength. Some even recounted that, after helping other grieving parents, they began to feel a profound peace, as if a silent voice were saying, "Now yes, we are at peace." Chico said that these were the signs that the cycle had been completed, that love had fulfilled its function of uniting the worlds. He believed that the greatest miracle is not the healing of pain, but its transformation into wisdom. The soul matures when it learns to love without expecting anything in return, he said, and loving a departed being is the purest exercise of that love. Thus, he invited each person to look inward, to seek in their own faith the path to continue. Not a blind faith, but a lucid faith that recognizes life in all its forms. A faith that demands no proof, only feels. Because for Chico, feeling is what connects the human to the divine. Perhaps the greatest lesson he left us is this: true love doesn't depend on presence. It's a frequency, a living energy that continues to circulate between planes, touching those who believe. And every thought of peace, every gesture of kindness, every sincere prayer strengthens this invisible bond. When you do something good in the name of someone who has passed, that person's soul feels it, rises, and blesses you in return. Love is the bridge. Goodness is the path. There is something profoundly human in Chico's words because they don't promise the impossible. They reveal what is already happening, even if we don't see it. He said that the souls who departed early continue to follow in their parents' footsteps, silently guiding them. Sometimes they influence choices, ward off dangers, inspire ideas, and when they feel that the family's heart is at peace, they continue their own journey, but they never completely leave. Their presence is discreet but constant, he said. They learn, evolve, and root for us. If you've made it this far, perhaps you've felt something different within yourself, a memory, a longing, perhaps an unexpected comfort. This is a sign that the message has fulfilled its purpose. The pain that once weighed you down may be beginning to transform into understanding. It's the first step in spiritual healing. And as Chico said, when pain turns into understanding, the spirit begins to see with the eyes of God. Now is the time to apply what you have learned. If the absence still hurts, transform it into a symbolic presence. Create a gesture in memory of your beloved soul. A prayer, a letter, a flower, an act of kindness. Each time you do this, imagine that the spirit receives this energy as a gift. Love doesn't need words to be felt. It only needs to be sincere. When the remembrance comes accompanied by gratitude, and no longer by despair, you will know that peace has begun to blossom. The path to healing, Chico taught, is made of small actions. Each day, choose to replace guilt with prayer, pain with loving remembrance, emptiness with service. The spiritual world responds to these gestures like a mirror. What you offer in love returns multiplied in light, he said. And that is the key to continuing, to love actively, consciously, and with renewal. He used to end his conversations with a simple yet powerful phrase: "No love is ever lost, because love is God in motion." May this phrase become an anchor in your heart. Every time you feel longing, repeat it. Every time guilt tries to return, remember, God does not judge those who love. Pain is not punishment, it is an invitation to expansion. And the one you love is closer now than ever before, only in another form of existence, vibrating in light, waiting to see you at peace. Before you leave this message, do one last exercise. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the person, or the soul, that inspired this search within you. Feel their name echoing silently. Mentally envelop them in an embrace made of light. Say to yourself, "I love you, I release you, I go in peace." This is the most powerful prayer that exists, because it transforms two hearts at the same time, yours and theirs. And if this message touched you in any way, share that feeling. Like this video, not out of habit but as a symbolic gesture, a small light you ignite for all the souls still waiting for solace. Leave your comment, even if silent, even with just one word. Write gratitude, peace, or simply a heart. And if you feel you want to continue learning, subscribe to the channel. Here, every word is a prayer, and every story is an invitation to understand that true love doesn't die. It only changes form, rises, and continues to guide us until the day the promised reunion finally happens.